Well, as coronavirus spreads to more countries, it's threatening the health of the global economy. It's one of the worst weeks for the Dow since the 2008 financial crisis. And we hit the streets to ask how worried you are about COVID-19's impact on the economy.
It's all about the effect coronavirus is having on the economy.
As a stock investor, anytime you see it go down 20%, you're kind of happy in this weird sense. You're like, yes, I can invest, buy everything cheap. At the same time, as someone who works a 9-to-5 job, you're like, oh, now's the time where people are going to start getting layoffs and everything like that.
I don't think so. I don't know if it will get to a point where it'll affect it that much.
You worried at all about the effect on the economy?
Oh, I'm actually kind of worried, yeah. Because it could shut down global supply chains, right?
I mean, we're so intertwined, interconnected, with the whole world is.
And thanks to everyone who stopped to chat the other day. So for more on the impact this outbreak is having on Canada's economy, we've reached Pedro Antunes. Now, he is the chief economist at the Conference Board of Canada, not-for-profit think tank, and he joins us from Ottawa. Pedro, thanks so much for your time, especially early on a weekend morning. Canadian markets took a tumble this week. How concerned are you about the fact that the COVID virus continues to spread and what effect it might be having on the economy?
Well, I think some of the interviews you had with the audience there were right on. I think the issue here, of course, is that the first country affected was China. And China is a huge country now. It's a global power in terms of its consumer spending. And so we're already seeing some implications of that. And we've heard about the Chinese that are the number one outbound travel market. So that's having an impact certainly on global tourism. And on top of that, of course, there's the supply chain impacts that some alluded to. So just that Hubei province, for example, it produces 50% of LCD screens in the world. So you can imagine that if in the supply chains, these things are starting to be felt. But more broadly now is that the virus is spreading outside of China, and the concern there is how far does this go before we do contain it, and it is going to have impacts across the world.
Let's try and unpack some of that. You talk about supply chain, talk about flat screens and other things, but presumably Canadian consumers and even a lot of Canadian manufacturers may not be fully aware of how much of the bits and bytes of their finished product actually starts out in China, right?
Well, in fact, yes, a lot of manufacturers don't know how deep their supply chains run. We do know that we're very much integrated within North America, so we tend to look south when we think about supply chains. But we cannot ignore that in terms of chemical supplies, in terms of some of these parts for electronics, in terms of some of the minerals even, a lot of this does come from China and from other parts of the world. So we're not immune to that. And I think, just when we think about China as the second biggest economy in the world, this is going to have an impact globally, which will have repercussions for Canada. We're an exporting economy. We depend on the global economy. So this is going to have further impacts.
We certainly saw some effects on the stock market, although many have pointed out that maybe there was some froth that needed to be taken off the top anyway, and that would have happened at some point. But in terms of the effect on Canadian consumers, how long do you think it'll be before that effect is palpable?
Yeah, in Canada, we're lucky. We came off a very good year for employment in 2019. Wages are pretty healthy. They're growing fairly strongly. So in terms of the income side, we're in pretty good shape heading into this. The problem is the kind of fear factor, and this is something that economists and many others have become very aware of since the 2008-2009 recession. The fear factor can have huge implications for consumer confidence, business confidence, and that can play itself out. I would remind people that these types of viral kind of global viral infections in the past, they have been followed by a big rebound. So hopefully we'll be able to contain this before it has too much further reach, and we hopefully will see that similar kind of pattern rebounding in consumer spending, et cetera, when people do finally breathe easier about the virus.
Until we get to that rebound, is there anything that the government could or should do to potentially stave off some of those ill effects?
Well, I think right now this is a health crisis, and I think governments should really focus on that. I think with respect to the economy, I think people should have, we should try and have as much common sense about avoiding too much travel, avoiding going to places where there are contagion. And as individuals, I think health officials would tell you, stay home if you're not feeling so good. And hopefully, we won't see this take bite here in this country.
Pedro, thank you so much for your help. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
Pedro Antunes is the chief economist with the Conference Board of Canada.